So, Dan, I was just over at dandicker.com. I was looking up to get your take, and I'm glad I was able to reach you. We are witnessing Donald Trump exercise what I think some have interpreted as some type of populist measure. But when you get right down to it, and, I travel in circles of both populists and socialists and progressives, and occasionally I will run into a conservative. The one thing that I hear people say, some people disagree on tariffs, no tariffs, some protectionist measures, others not so much. But it seems universally there's a sense that Donald Trump, when he's throwing out these tariffs and this notion of a trade war, that there's no strategy, there's no tactics, there's no plan, and all we're getting is, in the end, is disaster.
What's amazing to me, Sam, is that, there's been many people have been talking about this. Well, this is like Trump doing his standard kind of negotiating tactic, promising fire and fury, more taxes than anybody's ever seen, whatever it is that his rhetoric, his hyperbolic rhetoric starts with. But in this particular case, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that the Canadians could say to Trump to appease him so that he would say, oh, I'm not going to do these steel and aluminum tariffs come July. I'm just not going to do them. There's not a word that the Chinese could say to him that would make him sort of in some way back down and choose to take away this singularly destructive kind of policy of tariffs that leads in only one direction, towards further retaliatory tariffs, ultimately a trade war, and in essence destroying what is his arguably his only real tangible asset, which is a very good economy that he inherited from Obama, but a very good economy. Right. He can single-handedly throw the global marketplace into a global recession. It's insane. And, I'll say this. I'll say that the markets, from a market point of view, the markets have been viewing, like calling BS on Trump for weeks, saying there's no way he's going to go through with this. There's no reason for him to go through with it. It's self-imposed. It's generated only from him alone. There's no reasoning behind it at all. And he's not going to go through with this because all it leads to is a destructive for our economy and the rest of the global community. But as we get closer and closer to the actual deadlines when these are supposed to go into effect, the markets are starting to say, and you can see them getting real jittery. Maybe he's actually going to go through with this.
All right. Well, okay. So let's back up a little bit. I want to start with something, just the general notion. There's plenty of tariffs that we impose on different products, right? And it's just that we have found an equilibrium now with different trading partners where we give some benefits, they give some benefits to some of our industries, we give some benefits to some of their industries, right? I mean, do I understand that correctly?
You do, but you've got to remember that when it comes to trade and these kinds of tariffs, it is an exceedingly nuanced kind of balance that goes through just tremendous discussions. There's a little tit for tat here and a little tit for tat there. And these things develop over the course of decades. And with Trump,
but wait a second.
Always this sledgehammer kind of effect. He runs in with, an enormous torch and starts to burn shit down. Well, and then he figures out.
Okay, but Dan, explain to me the nuances here. I mean, I'm not sure that people fully get that how much domestic politics plays into the nuances of tariffs, because it's not a question of we want our trade imbalance to be X or we want our trade imbalance to be Y. It is, I have a political base that happens to produce this product. You have a political base that produces that product. I want to favor, my political base. You want to favor your political base. If they're compatible, if I can protect mine and you can protect yours, we're in good shape. But a lot of times those things are at loggerheads, right? I mean, so just give us a brief overview of how that works. And then let's talk about how Trump is coming in there and ignoring all of it, but also he's not just ignoring that, the constraints of other countries that they have domestically. It's almost as if he's ignoring even his own base here. That's the thing that seems so bizarre about this. Am I right?
Well, I don't know whether he's ignoring his own base, because the truth is what he is doing, he's attacking those things as he has in several different areas inside the Rust Belt, inside those red states that have supported him and continue to support him. So there's been a whole move, for example, from the Energy Department to try and increase the protectionism on coal and on nuclear. And so this is just another example of that. So he's got a huge base of those who work in the steel and aluminum industry. They work in rubber. They work in the paper mills. They work in all of these industrial kind of centers that have gone downhill entirely outside of the reasons that, Trump may put forward because of competition from China or elsewhere. But be that as it may, what it does is it makes him look like he is doing something for the workers that voted for him and trying to protect those non-competitive or at least no longer competitive steel and aluminum industries inside those areas. But the problem, of course, is that it shoots in the foot the same kind of constituency in Canada who also support him and are part of the same unions. And also in terms of the Chinese, it puts in a target that group that is entirely different than the ones he is fighting, in North America and in Europe. Now, I know this sounds complicated, but it's really not. What it is it's Trump again using a sledgehammer where you really need a scalpel and deciding, that he's going to make a very big show trying to fix what is a very complex problem with a big gun. And if my people in the steel mills are suffering, I'm going to slap tariffs on everybody else who's competing with them. If I don't like immigration, I'm going to build a wall. If I don't like Obamacare, I'm going to throw it out without another solution behind it. Everywhere you see Trump take on these very challenging and nuanced and difficult kind of negotiations on a domestic or a foreign level, his solutions to them are always unnuanced,
moronic,
like,
yes,
and moronic, of course, moronic.
Right. Okay. So, all right. So, with that said, what I want to know too, when we come back, is I can see in the context of I want to build a wall. All right. That's not going to solve anything, but at least it's symbolic and it might make people in his base feel good. They've gotten really attached to the idea of a wall.
He'll claim that it fixes it. And just like he comes back from North Korea, signs a communique that's the exact same communique that North Korea has been signing for 30 years and says, I fixed it. He thinks it's going to fix it.
He's been saying the same thing with healthcare, and we're going to see a jump in premiums this fall because of it. But we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to know, because I just noticed this week, Sherrod Brown comes from Ohio, comes from the Rust Belt. He's just bailed out on the whole tariffs thing, and my sense is he has a sense of how actual steel workers on the ground are starting to feel about this. So I want to ask you, you've given me those other examples, but it seems to me that there's going to be pain associated with these tariffs, and it's not going to be, it's going to be felt on those same people that Donald Trump purports to be helping, and they're going to be aware of it. It's going to be a much tougher job to snow them on this. I want to ask you to address that when we return. We're going to take a quick break. I'm Sam Seder. This is Ring of Fire Radio. I'm talking to Dan Dicker from dandicker.com. We'll be right back after this.